In the previous lessons, we reviewed how phishing campaigns are planned, crafted, and delivered. We've seen the psychology, the reconnaissance, the message design, and delivery infrastructure. Now we're going to look at what happens after someone clicks, that fateful moment. This is where the attacker's careful preparation pays off and where a single moment of deception turns into lasting compromise. When a victim clicks a phishing link or opens a malicious attachment, there's a brief window where the attacker needs to capitalize on that access. For credential harvesting campaigns, the victim lands on a fake login page. They enter their username and password, believing they're logging into a legitimate service. That credential is immediately captured and stored in the attacker's database. Most victims don't realize anything is wrong. The fake page might be showing an error message, "Your password was incorrect, please try again," and then redirect to the real login page. The victim tries again on the real site, successfully logs in, and continues with their day. They might never realize they just gave their credentials to an attacker. For malware delivery campaigns, the malicious file executes on the victim's computer. Depending on the payload, this might establish a backdoor for remote access, install keylogging software to capture everything the victim types, deploy ransomware that will encrypt files, or install spyware that monitors activity and steals data. The key for attackers is speed. They need to extract value from the compromise before it's detected and remediated. Sophisticated phishing operations don't just collect credentials, they validate them immediately. Automated systems test the stolen credentials against the real service within minutes of capture. This serves multiple purposes. First, it confirms the credentials are valid and the account is active. Second, it allows attackers to determine what level of access they've gained. Is this a regular user account or something more valuable? It's like ripping open their gift right away to find out what they got. Third, it lets them act quickly before the victim changes their password. If the credentials work, the attacker might immediately log in and change the account recovery email to one they control, add multi-factor authentication methods they control, or disable security alerts that would notify the victim of suspicious activity. For high-value accounts, corporate email, banking, cryptocurrency exchanges, attackers act within minutes. They know they have a limited window before detection. Once attackers have valid credentials for one service, they immediately test those same credentials across dozens or hundreds of other services. Remember that most people reuse passwords. If your LinkedIn password works, there's a good chance your email password is the same. If your email password is the same, the attacker can reset passwords for most of your other accounts. Automated tools test credentials across common targets: email providers, banking sites, cryptocurrency exchanges, e-commerce platforms, social media, corporate VPNs, and cloud service accounts. This is why a single phishing compromise can cascade into total account takeover across your entire digital life. One password given to an attacker can unlock everything. For corporate account compromises, attackers use initial access as a stepping stone to deeper penetration. They search compromised email accounts for additional credentials, VPN access details, system documentation, organizational information, and relationship context. They look for emails containing passwords, discussions about security procedures, or information about valuable systems and data. They use the compromised account to send phishing emails to colleagues. These internal phishing attempts have dramatically higher success rates because they come from a known, trusted sender. An email from your coworker asking you to review a document doesn't trigger suspicion the way an external email might. They attempt to escalate privileges. If they've compromised a regular user account, they'll try to leverage that access to gain administrator privileges through various techniques. The goal is to move from initial compromise to persistent privileged access before detection. While maintaining access, attackers extract valuable data from compromised accounts. From email accounts, they search for sensitive information like financial data, business plans, customer information, employee records, trade secrets, and confidential communications. They download email archives, attachments, and contacts. From cloud storage accounts, they copy documents, presentations, spreadsheets, and any other files that might have value, either for sale, for competitive intelligence, or for extortion. Modern phishing campaigns often include data theft as a standard component. Even if the victim eventually detects the compromise and changes their password, the attacker has already copied everything of value. Attackers monetize compromised accounts in multiple ways, depending on the account type and access level. Financial accounts are used for direct theft through fraudulent transfers or purchases. E-commerce accounts are used to make purchases with saved payment methods or to resell stolen gift card balances. Cryptocurrency accounts are drained immediately since those transactions are irreversible. Email accounts are valuable for business email compromise schemes, BEC, where attackers impersonate the account holder to request wire transfers or divert payments. Social media accounts are sold to marketers or used for spam and influence operations. Corporate accounts are used to launch further attacks or sold to other criminals on dark web marketplaces. Personal information extracted from compromised accounts is packaged and sold in bulk, like Costco. Identity information, financial records, and corporate data all have market value in criminal ecosystems. Attackers want to maintain access to valuable compromised accounts for as long as possible. They create multiple backdoor access methods. They add their own recovery email addresses and phone numbers. They create applicable specific passwords. They create application-specific passwords that remain valid even if the main password changes. They enable legacy authentication protocols that bypass modern security controls. They monitor the account for password change notifications. If the victim changes their password, the attacker immediately attempts to regain access through the recovery methods they have established. They try to avoid behaviors that trigger security alerts. They log in from IP addresses that match the victim's geographic location using proxy services. They maintain activity patterns similar to the legitimate user. They avoid mass data downloads that might trigger anomaly detection. The longer they maintain undetected access, the more value they extract. Sophisticated attackers take steps to hide evidence of their activity. They delete login notifications and security alerts from the victim's inbox. They disable email forwarding rules after setting them up to copy emails to attacker-controlled addresses. They clear access logs where possible. They use the victim's own sent items folder to send phishing emails to contacts, then delete those sent messages. In some cases, they intentionally create obvious suspicious activity as a diversion while conducting more subtle operations that go unnoticed. Security teams respond to the obvious threat while missing the real damage. Professional phishing operations track detailed metrics to optimize their campaigns. They measure the open rate, what percentage of recipients open the email. They track the click rate, what percentage click the malicious link. They monitor the credential submission rate, what percentage of those who click actually enter credentials. They calculate the validation rate, what percentage of submitted credentials are valid and usable. They track the time from compromise to detection and remediation. They measure the value extracted per compromised account. They analyze which approaches work best for different target types. These metrics inform future campaigns. Successful techniques are replicated and refined. Unsuccessful approaches are abandoned. This is continuous improvement applied to criminal activity. Many phishing victims never realize they've been compromised, at least not immediately. The fake login page looked real. The redirect to the real site worked normally. They successfully logged in on the second attempt. Everything seemed fine. Days or weeks later, they might notice suspicious activity, unexpected password reset emails, unfamiliar login locations, missing emails, or unusual account behavior. By that time, the attacker has already extracted significant value and established multiple persistence mechanisms. Some victims only discover the compromise when their accounts are used for obviously malicious activity, when their email account is used to send phishing to their entire contact list, when fraudulent charges appear on their credit card, or when their business bank account shows a suspicious wire transfer. A single successful phishing compromise can cascade in multiple directions simultaneously. The compromised account sends phishing emails to contacts who trust messages from a known sender. The stolen credentials unlock additional accounts through password reuse. Access to one employee's account provides information used to target other employees. Corporate account compromise enables broader network infiltration. The cascade effect is why phishing emails are so effective. One person clicking one malicious link can compromise an entire organization. There's a powerful quote from the cybersecurity expert Dan Geer in his paper, Cybersecurity as Realpolitik. He wrote, "In security, the defender must defend all points. The attacker can choose any point. That asymmetry is fundamental to understanding why security is difficult." This asymmetry perfectly captures the reality of phishing. Organizations must protect every employee, every account, every moment of vulnerability. Attackers only need one person to click once. Defenders play a perfect game or they lose. Attackers can fail hundreds of times and still succeed with a single compromise. This fundamental imbalance explains why phishing persists despite massive security investments and continuous awareness training. Understanding this asymmetry should inform both organizational security strategies and individual vigilance. There's no such thing as mostly secure when it comes to phishing. A single compromise can undo all other protections. For many attackers, phishing is a profitable business with reliable returns. The infrastructure costs are low, domain registration, hosting, and tools can be had for hundreds of dollars. The potential returns are enormous. A single successful business email compromise can net millions of dollars. Even smaller scale operations targeting consumer accounts generate steady income. Ransomware groups increasingly start with phishing to gain initial access. The phishing campaign costs relatively little, but a successful ransomware deployment can generate millions in ransom payments. This economic reality ensures phishing will continue. As long as it remains profitable, attackers will invest in making it more sophisticated and harder to detect. When a phishing compromise is discovered, victims often think changing their password solves the problem, but it doesn't. If the attacker established additional access methods, recovery emails, authentication apps, application passwords, those persist after a password change. If the attacker installed malware, that remains active. If the attacker copied your data, they still have it. If the attacker used your credentials to compromise other accounts, those, of course, remain compromised. Proper remediation requires changing passwords on all accounts where that password was reused, removing any recovery methods you didn't create, reviewing account activity for unfamiliar access, checking for email forwarding rules or filters you didn't create, scanning devices for malware, and monitoring accounts for suspicious activity going forward. Most victims don't do comprehensive remediation. They change one password and assume the problem is solved. Meanwhile, the attacker maintains access through methods the victim didn't even know exist. When a corporate account is compromised through phishing, the impact extends far beyond that individual employee. The compromised account provides internal access that bypasses perimeter security. It enables business email compromise targeting finance departments. It provides intelligence about organizational structure, relationships, and processes. It creates a beachhead for ransomware deployment, and it exposes confidential business information and customer data. A single employee falling for phishing email can trigger data breach notification requirements, affecting thousands or millions of customers. It can result in regulatory fines, lawsuits, reputation damage, and competitive harm. Every employee represents a potential entry point. The most important defense happens in the moment before you click or enter credentials. If you've clicked a link and land on a login page, pause. Look at the URL in your browser's address bar. Does it exactly match the legitimate site? Not similar, but exactly match. If you have any doubt, close the page and navigate to the site directly through your browser. If you've entered credentials and see an error, don't just try again. Consider whether the page might have been fake. Change your password immediately on the legitimate site and change it on any other sites where you use the same password. If you realize you've been phished, act immediately because every minute of delay allows the attacker to extract more value and establish more persistence. So we're done with the phishing attack lifecycle aspect of this course. We've talked about psychological manipulation to reconnaissance, from message crafting to delivery evasion, from initial compromise to persistent access and monetization. The sophistication is clear. This isn't random cybercrime by amateur hackers. This is professional, well-funded, carefully planned criminal enterprise optimized for maximum effectiveness. But understanding how it works gives you power. because you can recognize the manipulation tactics, you can question messages that create urgency or pressure, you can verify requests through independent channels, you can act quickly when compromise occurs. Phishing succeeds because of information asymmetry. Attackers know how it works and victims don't. Now you know, and that knowledge will help in your defense. In our next section, we're moving from phishing to credential stuffing, how attackers leverage massive databases of stolen credentials from data breaches to compromise accounts at scale. You'll see how password reuse creates cascading vulnerabilities and why that breach from 5 years ago still puts you at risk today.